Here. Great. So, if you were looking at the syllabus as well, we are currently on session 8. It's flying by. And the last few sessions that we were working with, especially since session 6, there's been a few items in here that aren't necessarily crucial for your success with the capstone or project. But they're very handy tools, and if you ever wanted to try out Project 4 or some of the extra credit, these can come in handy for you as well. So for today as well, if we take a look at our participation, let me see here in the folder for new files and then the participation protocol, guess I should call it policy. Inside of your participation for today, and I'll be doing this in this little lecture too. I just want to make sure that everyone is familiar with these quick fixes and how to use them. In today's small lecture, we'll be using a really neat tool that fixes red eyes. So it's a bit hard to see, but if you see here, in some images online, there's a red eye that affects face or anything when it occurs. Or if you take an image of, or excuse me, if you take a photo, you might see a red eye or a glare. And there's a few neat built-in tools that work with it as well. And if you read this as well, you might notice this thing called Liquify. So Liquify is a really neat filter tool as well. That's a part of Photopea, and you can make images kind of goofy with it as well. But if you ever seen some crazy photoshopped images, Liquify is definitely a tool that you can use for that as well. So for today's participation, you can follow along with me, or if you just want to watch it and rewatch the lecture at a later time for today, that's fine too. But essentially, we'll just be fixing up this image and applying a few brightness and curves to it as well. So to get started with that, why don't we go into our main folder here inside of content, and then folder for new files edited by instructor, and then we have a session 8 image here as well. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but a lot of what I'm talking about is inside of this lesson 5 video tutorial provided. There's a M4V file or an MP4 file that's in there, and a different instructor goes through all of these quick fixes as well. And I just want to get us into it as well and just kind of touch on a few things too. But I would highly recommend watching this video as well, as he does a very good job of explaining things. And if you're ever kind of tired of hearing me explain anything, it might be good to check out someone else. So inside of the red eye folder here in session 8, there will be a red eye start.jpg file. You can go ahead and download that file, and then let's just put it into our Photopea here. So I'm just going to open from my computer, then my downloads and red eye start. And now we have this nice image of this lady, and the only issue here is that she has a few issues with the red eye that's going on with her eyes. So you might think that there's a few things that you would have to do, but if you were looking in Project 2 when we were using the spot healing brush tools as well, if you right click on that, you'll notice at the very bottom of our spot healing brush tools is a tool called Red Eye Tool. And of course, that tool is dedicated to actually fixing the issues of red eyes inside of images. So again, if you would like, to find this tool, it will be your seventh one down. And if you click on it down here, or if you right click on expanding these hidden tools, at the bottom of it will be your red eye tool. So I selected my red eye tool, and you'll notice that it looks a bit similar to the brush tool that is present in a lot of our other tools as well. And if I have a brush tool, if I right click right now, you'll notice that it acts like a brush. So I can actually increase the size, I can decrease the size, and can increase the hardness. For the red eye tool, why don't we make it kind of at 50 or 45 pixels? 46 is fine too. And I'm going to right click to hide this. And the reason I'm making it that big is because I just want it to be big enough that I can kind of cover her eye with it in like one go. So now with my red eye tool selected, I'm going to left click on her eye and just kind of drag it across a little bit here. And you'll notice here that what it does is it applies a bit of a filter on it. And if you see here how it's applying it to her eyeball in full, we don't really want that. We just want to fix the red eyes. So maybe 46 is a bit big. So let's reduce it a tiny bit more. And then maybe this is a good size because I just have her eye inside of my circle here. It might be a bit hard to see my cursor here, but I just have it inside her eye. And if I left click with it, it's able to just kind of mute the red-eye color that's there. So I'm going to click a few times. Nothing too big, but you'll notice now that her red eye has been fixed. There's still a bit of a glare inside of it, but that's fine too. The red eye, that's the glaring issue, is gone as well. And now that's actually all you will need to do to fix the red eye. So there's a few more things that I want to show off as well. And of course, a few of these are with some adjustments and filters. The first filter that I talked about earlier was the liquefy filter. Now, for your participation today, I want to make sure that you guys know how to use the red eye tool. So using that will be great, but if you want to go a bit further with your participation, you could do what I'm going to do here as well. So if you go onto your layer, have it selected, and then you go up here to the top where it says filter. If you hit filter and then go down to this tool called liquefy, and you select it, you're brought to this new page here. So this is separate from anything we've seen so far. And in DM141, you're going to see a lot of tools that look like this, where we're brought to a new kind of area inside a Photopea. And inside this area, we can do a few things. In the left side of your liquefy tool, you'll have a bunch of options such as smudge, reconstruct, smoothen, and each of these do their own thing here. Shrinks the items there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select shrink. And then you'll notice again that I have my brush tool. So just like the brush tool, I can increase the size. I can increase the rate, which the rate option here is how fast it shrinks anything. And the density as well as there. Let me make this a bit smaller. And what I'm going to do is with my shrink selected, I might just click one time onto her lips. And if you see here, it actually shrinks whatever it's clicked on. So of course, if I don't like what's going on, I can press Control Z to undo a single step, or I can hit reset to completely reset what my image is doing. And of course, what I said earlier is that you can get some kind of goofy effects if you use this like a lot. One is called twirl, and if you have twirl selected and you select something, it will actually twirl the image for you. So again, of course, when we use these tools inside of our projects, you're using them at a bit of a smaller rate, but I just want to make sure that everyone's familiar with these tools. So what I might do is having the shrink selected, might just shrink a few areas to just show off what it does here. And then of course, as I'm left clicking and dragging like I would with a brush, and it's just shrinking the areas a part of her as well. And again, if at any point I don't like what's going on, I can hit reset and it will undo my changes. And a few of these you'll notice, well, smudge works, but sometimes you might notice that no effect is taking place. Like for instance, right here, nothing's really going on. What happens with the reconstruct is that other edits need to be done first. Let's see if we can edit it a little bit. And then if you notice here, if I have my reconstruct selected, reconstruct will try and fix whatever my other edits did. So if you find that sometimes your tool isn't doing anything, make sure that you try out all of them first and see what happens there as well. There's also a blowout tool, which will just make things really big. So again, these tools are really neat and useful in order to try to edit your image a bit more. So for our sake here, I'm just going to use the shrinking tool. I'm just going to left click a few times on her lips to make it a bit smaller, just because I want to show off what these tools do. So there we go. It actually looks okay. Her lips look a bit different than they used to. So I'm just going to hit OK after I'm done editing this image. And you'll notice now that I have permanently changed my layer here. And now, if I wanted to undo these effects completely, my history contains a new subject called liquefy. So if I go to red eye tool and I hit liquefy after it, it will actually revert to those changes as well. And that's an important thing to do with these liquefy tools as well. Now, there's one more thing that I want to show off that's a part of our quick fixes over here. And one of them is the brightening an image using curves. So you might have seen these before, and if not, that's completely fine. These might be new too as well. But if you notice here, my image is a little bit kind of gray and dark after I fixed up a few things inside of the original picture. So to brighten this image, I can go to image and then adjustments. And you'll notice that we have our brightness and contrast, so I can just brighten it like this, and that's fine. And this is what we've done before in previous projects as well. But there's one more option here in image adjustments. You'll notice that the third option says curves. I'm going to select curves, and this will bring up this kind of fancy histogram of what I can use to brighten my image. Now, there's a few things going on here, and sometimes it might look very complicated, but I'll try to break it down for us. I would say for your channel, RGB, which is red, green, and blue, I would keep it at that. And for spline or sketch, and the difference here is that I'll show off what spline does first. Once I have my RGB and spline selected, I can select my line that's cutting across the middle of my histogram here, and I can actually go ahead and drag it up and down. So I can make it very bright. If you see here, it's almost too bright. I can make it a bit more bright on the other side. And this is just going to use curves in order to adjust the image there. And what I'm sampling from the image is the type of color. So if I selected white to sample from the image, you'll notice that it gets it gets brighter in different ways, depending on where you selected your curve. Usually you can keep it at black, and then you can just drag this around if you'd like and keep it at RGB. So I might make this a bit bigger here, maybe to right there. And I'm going to hit OK. And now you'll notice that just like before, I have a curves history input inside of my history pane, and I can select the curves again. Now, if we go back to image adjustments and curves again, I talked a bit about this sketch version. And the sketch version is a bit different because you can actually just sketch out the line. So you can get some pretty good effects with this as well. It does look a bit weird sometimes though if you do it too much. So what I would say is spline is usually a bit easier to do than sketch. So you can just keep it on spline too. And of course, let me undo all of our work here. If I go to image adjustments and curves, I can change the channel as well. So I can make my image more red if it's on red. I can make it more green if I want to as well. And then I can make it more blue myself too. And you'll notice that the colors actually stay, they don't override each other. The adjustments of these colors stays. So now I kind of have a green-blue image. And that's just one way that you can use curves for adding into your for editing the adjustments there. So again, the way that you can get to curves is by going to image, adjustments, and then curves. And then playing around with a few of these, you can do all the adjustments at once if you'd like using it this way. And you can hit OK when you're done, and that will pretty much save your effects there.